Welcome back. Today we are going to be unwrapping this boat, which is really not that hard of a process. All we're going to do is go to the shader editor first, and I'm going to add in a new material. And now, because we have Node Wrangler enabled, I'm going to click Control T, which is going to add a new image texture directly to the base color of what I have selected. I can just open up an image and go find a wood texture. I'm going to choose this one. You can really choose any texture that has planks. Ideally a PBR texture, but because I don't think I have one, I'm just going to go with this. Well, actually I do have a PBR texture. I'll go with this one. So now that we have this, you'll see that this boat does not unwrap very well. It just doesn't look that great. So we're going to do a few things to make sure that this unwraps correctly. First, I'm going to just select the outside on its own. I'm going to press Control I and then press H, and that's going to hide everything but the outside of the boat. So unwrapping is kind of a strange thing that's pretty difficult for some people to understand. Essentially, we're taking a 2D image and we're trying to project it onto a 3D object. So essentially, to unwrap something, we have to do the opposite of that. We have to take a 3D object and make it so that a 2D image can be wrapped around that. You can think of it like a candy wrapper going around a piece of candy. In order to make everything look right, the candy wrapper has to be set up in a certain way so that when you put it on the object, you still get to see, the logo for Tootsie Roll or whatever. The way to unwrap anything is to mark seams. Marking seams basically decides where something is cut apart. So if we select this edge going around the back and we choose edge, mark seam, what's going to happen when I unwrap this is I'm going to have two separate pieces. So I'm going to have this part, this outside bit, and then we're going to have this back bit. So I can press U, unwrap, angle based, and as you can see, we have the front area of the boat going all the way around, and we have the back area of the boat. Now, one thing I also want to do is I want to unwrap the front in the same exact way. The reason I'm unwrapping these separately is because they have these odd shapes which aren't fully squares, and anything that's not square kind of unwraps on its own and can kind of stretch and make some odd issues from time to time. So what we're going to do, once again, mark seam. And now if I unwrap, we will have, as you can see, 3 separate pieces. Now the last unwrap I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight across the bottom and just cut this thing in half like this. So edge, mark seam, and there we go. We should have everything nicely unwrapped. And actually I lied. This little jut out may cause some issues. Press edge and mark seam on there as well. And overall I think we should have 6 separate pieces. So if I unwrap based on the angle, we have the bottom bits of the boat on the left and right side, the top bits of the boat on the left and right side, and then we have the back and the front and everything else. Now that we have that, I'm going to select a few different areas. First, I'm going to select just these two, and if I press Control L, it'll select these spots. And now that we have our UV squares add-on enabled, I'm going to press N and click on UV squares. It's down here on the side, and I can press snap to X or Y axis, and basically that's going to straighten out all of these objects. So as you can see, it straightens them out perfectly. Then I can just flip them and scale everything. And I'm just going to try and scale everything so it fits nicely on here. And as you can see now, we have these easy planks that just unwrap and go the right direction. And it looks very nice. Now for the back of the boat, I'm going to keep it simple and basically just unwrap these and rotate them. And I'm going to try to avoid having too many planks. So I'm just going to drop these directly onto here and try and make them fit in a way that looks natural. So this is just going to be basically one big block of wood. Now I can select this whole piece going all the way around the back, and I can unwrap those and then snap them to an axis. Then if I press R90, I can rotate them 90 degrees and have them just kind of going all the way around this boat. All right, there we go. Now, last thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm going to scale this up and try and just line it up with the other side of the boat. This way, it kind of fits a little bit. Obviously, it's hidden somewhat, so it's not that big of a deal. You can honestly just keep it small and unwrap it like that if you really want to. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Alt-H. Alt-H unhides everything. And I'm going to press Control I now and hide the outside of the boat. So now we're only working on the inside of the boat. First thing I'm going to do now is select the inside, Control I, and hide all these little extra beams that I have because they're going to make things a little bit difficult and they're just kind of in the way for now. So I'm going to do the same exact process, basically. Select these faces, which are kind of, separate and not four-sided. And I'm just going to mark them as a seam. And then I'm going to take this bottom face right here, right in the middle, and mark that as a seam as well. All right, so now that I have that, I'm just going to select both of these sides. I'll just select both of these, unwrap them, and then I'm just going to rotate them properly and try and line them up. Now you're going to see that this thing is behaving a little bit strangely right here where the beam is kind of not lining up properly. I'm just going to scale it until they kind of line up. And luckily, we have all these beams going across the side as well, so it shouldn't be too noticeable, and I'm not going to worry about it too much. So now that we have that, I'm going to select all of these edges going around these little support beams. And once I have all those selected, I'm going to mark as a seam. And I can select an edge or a face from all of them. Then I can press Control L, press U and unwrap them, and then I can snap them to an axis. I'm going to rotate them all so that they are facing the same direction. And all I'm going to do is line them up so that none of them are on top of any of these creases. And there we go. Now I have these single beams and they just look a little bit more natural here. All right. The back I will just unwrap the same way I did before. And we're just going to place it onto one spot like that. And we're going to do the same thing for the front piece. We're just going to drop it down like that. Next, we're going to press Alt-H. I'm just going to select the inside and the outside of the boat. Press Control-L. And this time, I'm going to choose my delimit as normal. This way, anything that's connected is going to get selected. And I can just press H to hide those. And now we can work with all of these extra support beams. So let's start with the easy stuff. We're just going to grab these things. And I'm just going to press Control-L. I'm going to press U and then Q Project. Because these are flat, I don't really need to unwrap them in any way. Which makes my life a little bit easier. So now I just got to make sure everything lines up and doesn't clip any of these beams, which is pretty easy. All I got to do is do that, and then I can scale them if I want to get some extra detail on them. So I'm going to do this with every single piece I've got, and there we go. That looks pretty good. And all right, there we go. Now, next, I want to select these. Now, you'll see when I'm unwrapping it, I'm getting a little bit of stretching. So instead, to fix this stretching issue, I'm going to select, holding Alt, just this whole line of faces, which is going to select the top and the bottom. I'm going to press U, unwrap it, and then just rotate it 90 degrees until it fits. And as you can see, we don't get any stretching anymore. And I can just scale this up until I get as much detail as I want. I'm going to do the exact same thing for all of these wood beams, and I don't have to go one at a time. I can select multiple and do them all, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing along the sides and just make sure that everything fits nicely. There we go. Now I just need to do this on the other side. Shouldn't be too difficult. And one of my pieces unwrapped the wrong direction. That's okay. I can use this island select, and I can just click on this face to select the whole thing and rotate it 90 degrees and then just drop it where it belongs. All right, and let's finally do all the sides of all the remaining pieces. You unwrap, rotate them, and scale them until they fit. Super simple process. We've got one or two more pieces to do. So first, let's start with this inside beam. All we have to do is unwrap it and snap it to its axis, and we should have a straight line that works pretty easily. There we go. It's pretty perfect right off the bat. Then we can select this outer edge with L, do the exact same thing. You unwrap and snap to an axis, and it should just work, as this is all cubes and it's pretty easy loop to follow. All right, now we have this bottom piece as well that needs to be unwrapped. All right, so let's just select this, Q Project, and snap to an axis. Then we can R90 it and flip it in whichever direction we want, scale it however we'd like, and it should just work properly. All right, last thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to select these pieces in here by selecting face mode and pressing L. I'm going to select it by the seam, and really what I just want to do is make sure that these areas kind of fit in a natural way. So you can see this top area doesn't fit too well. In fact, I can line this up perfectly if I wanted by just using the snap tool, choosing vertex, and if I choose vertex mode and select my vertex, I can just snap it on to whichever spot I want. As you can see now, that lines up pretty perfectly right there. I can do the same thing over here. It just depends on if you're willing to do the extra work. You don't have to do this, obviously. It just it can help a little bit in order to make things look a little bit better. All right, and there we go. That is the full tutorial. Now we have a fully unwrapped boat that looks really nice. And now the last thing we need to do is we need to jump into making the shader. I will show you that in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe and share the video. I'll see you next time. Bye.